Thank you very much. So pleased to be here today. As said, I am Shannon Broden in real life, known as Kriyatya or Kriyatya Shannon in virtual worlds. If you need a copy of today's presentation, it's available at the link that I've provided in the chat. Today, we'll discuss looking at wellness in virtual worlds using mindfulness. I received an MLIS from San Jose State University and also have an MA in Communications from California State University of Fullerton. Additionally, I received a yoga teaching certificate from Cypress College in California. Today, we're going to talk about the concept of wellness in virtual worlds with a specific focus on mindfulness. I do want to start by acknowledging there are so many ways that health and wellness can be done with virtual worlds. It far surpasses what could be done in an hour, and I hope this may encourage others who can speak on this to come forward and share their experiences. My passions are about digital content and emerging technology. But the downside of having such an interest in technology is spending way too much time in a seated position, so that contributed to me wanting to learn ways I could improve my health and wellness when I couldn't get far from my desk. These are the reasons I became interested in yoga for its meditation and mindfulness techniques from a peer-reviewed medical perspective. Our studies in the yoga certificate program when I was at Cypress included studies on physiology and anatomy, in addition to the history and philosophy of yoga, in a holistic environment. The goals of today's session include briefly discussing what it means to be mindful, challenges of translating the same wellness content to various virtual world platforms, ways virtual worlds can be used for wellness, the role that communities can play in virtual worlds, some samples of research I've encountered over the last 2 years of working in this area, and then ending with an optional mindfulness meditation exercise should you wish to participate. Before we continue, I want to remind everyone that we can always be mindful and practice mindfulness in everything we do every day. Using a virtual world platform as part of a mindfulness routine is a personal choice, not a necessity. So today we'll talk about what possibilities exist in the use of virtual worlds for mindfulness to encourage dialogue if anyone wants to consider using them. I'd also like to point out an interesting observation I found going through peer-reviewed articles for this presentation. In terms of mindfulness in virtual worlds specifically, a June 2025 scoping review of mindfulness in the metaverse concluded that an unclear definition of mindfulness in the literature proved to be a critical weakness. Studies contained limited definitions of mindfulness, if at all. If you're interested in that article, you can find the abstract information on the slide, which includes the full packet that I gave the link to earlier. My first work in wellness education in virtual worlds began when I was in school getting my master's degree in library and information science from San Jose State University. One particular challenge I took on when seeing the increased interest in wellness and self-care for educators involved trying to create rooms or spaces devoted to these topics in Frame VR, Second Life, and Spatial. After I graduated, I then tried to see if I could recreate a similar experience in Kitely on Open Simulator. I presented a poster on building my student environments inworld at San Jose State University's school reception at the American Library Association conference in San Diego. Though I just realized looking at my speakeasy, I actually wrote the term in world when I meant that I presented it in person. So it's kind of an interesting side thought about how sometimes that line can blur when we're thinking about what in world is. But this was, like I said, this was actually presented to people who came to a school reception in San Diego in the summer of 2024. If you want to see copies of that poster, they're in my virtual library here on Leaf Roller in Second Life. And you can also find it at the Open Simulator 2025 Expo 3 area in booth 10, where OSCC was kind enough to let me have one of their booth spaces when I was moderating this year. If you're interested to get copies of the note cards that were done for the version of the exhibit in Second Life that are at San Jose State University, they're actually in the box here out in front of me if you're interested in picking those up. Now, we'll go over some ways that people can use virtual world environments for mindfulness if they're trying to build an area for themselves. One of the earliest things I personally did when I got land was I built a little skybox that I textured like a beach with beach sand. Bought some, cheap linden fencing to fit the feeling I wanted, and also to keep me from falling out of the sides. It had a practical purpose. And then I used minimal decoration to build this small beach area I could just retreat to and run a little animated fire. Nice and relaxing. Minimal impact on whatever else you have on your land property. I really enjoyed doing that. Later, I'd expand to an area on ground level that had a ground level campfire area. For those who can see the picture that I have, the fire is actually around the side of the building. It also has an indoor building area that I can retreat to if I feel the need and I don't want the outdoor feel. Inside, I made sure it had minimal decoration and chose windows that would still give me a pleasurable view of the landscaping I had done outdoors. If you're wondering why I have so many trees, that's actually to block out my neighbors to create the feel that I want. Because I actually have some, at the time actually when these were taken, I had some pretty noisy neighbors. They've since all sold their land, but I have no idea who's going to come in next. So I just left them because I like them. This way, I feel relaxed and in control of my area and my environment, concentrating on shutting things out. I like this because I find that if I just try to sit and find stillness solely when I'm at home, meaning in my real life environment, I'll manage to be distracted by something else I have to go do. So this gives me something very different to concentrate on. Now we've talked about personal ways that you can implement mindfulness and give yourself spaces in virtual worlds. So how can virtual world communities support mindfulness? The two major ways I've seen virtual world communities step up in regards to mindfulness are either providing group community sessions or areas for individuals to pursue interests on a self-directed basis. Now, there's a lot of overlap in that the locations may be used for either group or self-directed activities, such as meditation, journaling, or contemplative exercise, or sometimes for taking nature walks in virtually immersive environments. The elements added in group sessions include offering support groups for accountability and providing talks and discussions on mindfulness concepts. Some people look at working in meditation routines as part of their virtual world's mindfulness experience and approaches. Often the two are seen to be as intertwined, but as we've discussed, it's a matter of personal choice. Some people may feel what it needs for them to be mindful doesn't necessarily include meditation, and that's okay. If you do consider doing self-guided mindfulness techniques in virtual world, there are some real-world considerations on posturing and breathing technique. There's many options, but you do have to remember that they can affect your health in different ways, from releasing stress to changes in blood pressure, and always be aware in doing what is right and medically safe for you. Now, I'd like to do a quick overview of some of the research I've found in recent years regarding virtual worlds and mindfulness. But bear in mind that this is not comprehensive. I'm just sharing a few things. Again, if you want to go in depth, you'll find that on the presentation slides. But I'm just going to breeze over some of this. And just because we're in the middle, there's the link again. So this collection, if you're looking at the presentation slides, if you go back and research, are all the ones that indicate a very pro analysis of ways that it could be used. And they looked at a number of different things here. Duration of use, environment, etc. And there were a few that focused and took a very cautious, I use con because of a lack of space, but really I would say more of a cautious approach to how they looked at it. And again, full citations are available if you want to research. I didn't say it in the speakeasy, but I probably should. Many of these articles are open access. I tried to emphasize that in what I shared with you because I wanted to make sure everybody could read them. In the last few months, I also uncovered a set of additional articles that covered the use of virtual worlds in mindfulness, and with almost all of them from 2025. I have these on a separate slide because some of you may have been to the presentation that I did at the Virtual Worlds MOOC last summer. If you were, everything on this slide is since last summer, with the exception of one article. So I just wanted to point that out for those that were. And lastly, here are a few that I found specifically for the use of educational applications for students, often K through 12. And again, links to sources provided were available for those interested in reading. And I really hope that these inspire you to do your own further research in what interests you, because there is so much out there. And like I said, there is so much out there. And there is so much more we can say and discuss about what wellness in virtual worlds looks like. Mindfulness is just one aspect of that. If you'd like to discuss different aspects of wellness and health and how we can support each other in virtual worlds communities, the Virtual Worlds Education Consortium in Open Simulator will be hosting their inaugural bonfire chat in Kitely on wellness in open simulator worlds. And that's coming up this coming Tuesday, February 10th, 2026 at 10 a.m. grid time, which I also happen to be hosting, coincidentally. It is open to avatars from other worlds who can hypergrid. The goal is to have an open discussion where we'll talk about what educators find to be effective ways to deal with health and wellness education in open simulator worlds, from health sciences to wellness education and more, what educators may be personally trying or want to explore now, and what areas encourage more exploration. And I thank you all for coming today to this part of the program. I appreciate being able to share with you. I've also provided a list of books here that were resources in developing the remainder of today's program.